Welcome once again to your favorite sport channel here on YouTube, Ralph on VAR, where football's biggest moment goes under review. On this channel, we do pre-game and post-game analysis and as well as football banter, football or soccer as they call it in Northern America. On this episode, we are going to discuss game week 29, game week 30 that just went by during the midweek, and also the FA Cup fixtures that are coming on this weekend. We did some predictions into game week 29, but we couldn't bring you an episode for the game week 30. But we will look at how some of the results went. Were the fans happy about the results their team gave them, or they were not happy about that? We look at all that. But we are going to touch on the big games. So in game week 29, there were some interesting and big games in game week 29. That was during last weekend. There was that game between Liverpool and then West Ham United, where Liverpool were playing at home and they won that game by 5 goals to 2. So it was a walloping for Liverpool against West Ham United. In this game, the Ancelotti and his men were pushing their players forward, and as a result of that, they were able to break the defense of West Ham United. Even though West Ham United have been getting results in the past few games, they weren't able to get at least a draw against Liverpool at home. So Liverpool winning at home against West Ham United, and that made them leapfrog Chelsea in that game. Also, there was that game between Leeds United and Manchester City. So Leeds United started the game with their foot up front, and they were possessing the ball so much. They were getting the chances, but they were not able to convert the chances. Manchester City were able to push through because they are title challengers. They are also trying to contend for the title. They got the only goal of the game through Antoine Semenyo, and they won that goal. But sorry, they won that game by a lone goal, 1 goal to 0 in that game. So they were able to close the gap on Arsenal in that game before Arsenal played Chelsea on Sunday. In the other games on Sunday, there was a game between, as usual, the big game of that week was the game between Arsenal and Chelsea. But there was that game between Brighton and Hove Albion and Nottingham Forest, and Brighton playing at the Amex Stadium won that game by 2 goals to 1. There was that game between Crystal Palace and Manchester United. Manchester United playing at Old Trafford. They conceded the first goal, but as the game went on, they were able to push through. Michael Carrick and his men gave his charges the right tactics, the right formation. They were able to push through and win that game, coming from a goal down to win that game by 2 goals to 1. And in that game, too, Crystal Palace got a red card in that game. And the last game was the game between Arsenal and Chelsea. That was the game of the week where Arsenal were playing at home, and because Manchester City had played a game earlier before them, they had no other option than to win this game. And it was a game where all 3 goals were scored by the Arsenal players, and they were scored by defenders as well. Um, they scored the first goal through a set piece, which was a corner. Chelsea came back just before the halftime. They scored. There was a corner by Rhys James, and Hincapié scored an own goal in that game. But when they came back from the recess, that was when Arsenal were pushing all their men forward, and they were able to get a second goal, which won them the game, which was also through a set piece. So Arsenal are pushing the charges, and as we speak, they are still up on top. Before game week 30, it was still 5 points, but things have changed on the table after game week 30. So after that game, Arsenal still maintained their 5 points lead against Manchester City before going in game week 30, which was played just this Tuesday and then on Wednesday. So on Tuesday, there were games between Brentford and then Bournemouth, which ended in a stalemate 0-0, no team scoring a goal. There was a game between Everton and then Burnley. Everton playing at home. They won that game by 2 goals to 0 against Burnley. There was a game between Wolves and then Liverpool. So Wolves won that game by 2 goals to 1. They scored the first goal. Liverpool were able to equalize through Mohamed Salah, and in the dying minute of the game, they scored the winner of that game. It was a deflection, though the ball was on target, but it was a deflection that led to their goal. So Wolves, I have been saying that mathematically they are still in for a run to maintain their status in the Premier League, but with how things are going, I don't think that they will be able to survive the Premier League. But when you look at their past few games, the game against Arsenal, this game, and I think even a game before that, they did win. It's looking like they are trying to push their charges and then um, stay in the league. So let's see how things are going to go for them going forward. Even today, Friday, as I'm recording, they are playing against Liverpool again in the FA Cup, and it will be interesting to see how that game is going to go because just 2 or 3 days ago they played in the league and they did win against Liverpool. And this time around, they are facing Liverpool again in an FA Cup um, title match. All right. There was that game on. There were games on Wednesday as well. There was a game between Aston Villa and then Chelsea. So Aston Villa were playing at home and they lost at home at the Villa Park by 4 goals to 1 to Chelsea. In the return encounter, which was played at the Stamford Bridge, Aston Villa won that game, I think by 2 goals to 1, where they came from a goal down to win that game. Oli Watkins scored the winner in that game. But this time around, Chelsea were able to also come turn the story around. They came from a goal down to win by 1 goal to 0, by 4 goals to 1. Sorry. When the game started and Chelsea conceded somewhere in the third minute, I said to myself, "Here we go again. It's Chelsea back to route one." But the things changed for Chelsea this time around. Liam Rosinia and his men and his charges were able to turn things around for the Blue Army of Chelsea, and they won that game by 4 goals to 1, courtesy a hat trick from Joao Pedro and also a solitary goal from um, um, Cole Palmer in that game. So Chelsea winning by 4 goals to 1 against Aston Villa, and Aston Villa is also a contender for the top four or the Champions League qualification. So if Chelsea are able to beat some of these teams, then it pushes them, it gives them the edge over them to also qualify for the Champions League. There was also that game between Manchester City and the Nottingham Forest. City playing at home, but they couldn't carry all the maximum 3 points. They drew by 2 goals to 2 to Nottingham Forest, which was a shocker to me because I thought that since Arsenal played that day and they were winning, they knew the results that was going on at Brighton and Hove Albion. They should have at least managed a win. But even though Semenyo scored a goal and some one other player from their camp scored a goal, they couldn't win that game by any margin. So it ended in a draw, which makes the points gap between themselves and then Arsenal 7 points now. And there was that game between Newcastle United and Manchester United. So Michael Carrick finally losing a game since his arrival at Manchester United as a manager. Yes, as a manager. So since he came, he has been winning, and then the worst case scenario, he draws a game. But this time around, he lost to Newcastle United, who were down by a man, but they still managed to get a winner in the dying minute of the game. So Manchester United losing to Newcastle. So those were the results from match week 30. And this weekend we have games in the FA Cup, so there isn't any Premier League game coming on this weekend. Chelsea are playing against Wrexham, who are a newly promoted side in the Championship. And if you look at the story of Wrexham, the steady progression they have had from the third division of the third tier of English football up to the second tier, now the first tier, and they are looking to qualify for the Premier League. It's very astonishing because as we speak, they are sit in the Championship, and once they fall in between the third and then the sixth position, then they get to play in the playoffs at Wembley, and if they are able to win, then they qualify for the Championship. So it is not a team that Chelsea should underrate. Looking at their story in the past 3 or 4 seasons, that steady progression that they have made and where they are now. So it's going to be a very difficult game, but it's Chelsea, and I'm going to predict Chelsea to win against Wrexham tomorrow on Saturday. Arsenal are playing away from home against Mansfield Town, and I don't think Mansfield Town will be able to stand the test of time against Arsenal. I see Mikel Arteta fielding his second French side, or maybe his academy players, even against Mansfield Town, because he will want his players to have at least a rest going into the league games coming in the next time. And there is Newcastle United playing against Manchester City. If I am not mistaken, this is about the fourth or fifth time Newcastle United is facing Manchester City this season. and in most of the games, Manchester City have been able to win. And Manchester City now, I don't know where Pep Guardiola's concentration is going to be, whether to stick to uh, maybe concentrate on chasing Arsenal or just try to win the EFL Cup, which is in the final, or try and then win the FA Cup, or maybe win the Champions League, because it's looking like this is going to be his last season, and I don't know where he's going to draw all his attention to. But against Newcastle United, I still think they are still going to win against Newcastle United, even though Newcastle United are playing at home. I don't see them stopping Manchester City in that game. On Sunday, there'll still be some few games in the FA Cup. There's going to be that game between Fulham and then Southampton, a Premier League side playing against a Championship side. And I see Fulham winning that game. There's Portville against Sunderland, and then Leeds United playing against Norwich City. So those are the games we have in the FA Cup. That is the fifth round that is coming up this weekend, and um, they are not big games, but football, you can never tell the outcome until you watch the game. So I personally am looking forward to those games, especially as a Chelsea fan, looking forward to watching Wrexham for the first time since their steady progression into the championship. Okay, so this has been Ralph on VAM, where football's biggest moment goes under review. As I said, if you are new to the channel, kindly subscribe to our channel, like, and then put us on post notifications so that whenever an episode drops, you become privileged to be the first one to see it. If you see me in this jersey, it's my Ghana jersey. Yes, it's Ghana at 69. So Ghana's independence is today. Ghana is 69 years. And shout out to my Ghanaian friends back in Ghana and in the diaspora as well. So as I've already said, if you watch our previous episodes, in the upcoming World Cup, I'm going to be at most of the stadia to cover some of the Ghanaian matches. I'll bring fans' perspective, and I'll bring it right to you on this channel, Ralph on VAR, where football's biggest moment goes under review. So stay tuned and keep watching Ralph on VAR. Thank you for watching.